Hi, everybody. It's Robbie. Hope you can hear me. It's been a little bit of a hectic week, to say the least. Getting the podcast out a little bit late this week, but never going to not get it out if it is humanly possible. Lots of things have changed since we decided to do this podcast on what's going on politically in the economy here in the United States. So while this is about to go and be published, I'm sure a lot has happened since this conversation. Um, Also, too, we learned a new word this week called economics. I'm sorry I had to say that. But okay, sit back, listen, enjoy this episode. We go long this week. Lots was said. So will be interesting to hear what you think. Remember, follow, subscribe, and always provide us with feedback. Thank you for listening. Here we go. Hi, everybody, it's Robbie, and we are back for another episode of Miscellaneous Candor. Frank, honest, and otherwise outspoken. Hey, Steven, how are you?
Hi, Robbie. Hi, friends. It is I, Stephen Kennedy, board certified atheist, at your service. Let's talk.
Let's talk. So, audience, just a disclaimer. This episode, we are going to be talking about what's going on in the economy since the election. You've probably noticed we've stayed away from that for the most part. I mean, Stephen kind of got into it a little bit last week, but for the most part, we've
We've
stayed
been
away
we've
from
been
that.
uh, we've been restraining ourselves because I didn't want Robbie to go off the rails and start strangling me through the. No, just kidding. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh my goodness, it's so silly. Okay, we just decided that we wanted to talk about some other things, right? Everybody is probably inundated with all of the changes, all of the things that have happened. So we decided we want to talk about some other things because people are still living their lives day to day. But this week we actually are going to talk about what's been happening. We passed the first 100 days. We've also to have we passed the first 100? No, we haven't. We're close to the first 100 days, I should say. And also, too, there was a joint address that President Trump gave earlier this week. So we will be having some conversation about that in this episode and what is happening to people around and some of the things. Just want to put that out there. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about in terms of podcasts this week is I did listen to a podcast with Gavin Newsom. So Gavin
Interesting.
Newsom he has two podcasts, right? He had that
You got
podcast with,
two?
he has two.
Wow.
He has one with Marshawn Lynch. I think I told you about that. And this other guy, Doug Henderson, who's a sports agent. And they go back and forth. They talk about sports and things, and they have other guests that come on. But this one he has is called This is Gavin Newsom, and he brings on people who are antithetical to his perspective. And he had Charlie Kirk on there. Do you know who that is?
No.
So I didn't know who Charlie Kirk is either. But evidently Charlie Kirk is a huge conservative voice out there. His podcast, he has, I don't know, millions, maybe 10 million followers or something like that on either X or Instagram. He's super young. He started off by going to college campuses and just he was at a college and he dropped out, going to college campuses, setting up a card table. This is his story, and saying, "Debate me." And he is white, Anglo-Saxon male, married, Christian, does not believe in gay marriage, um, anti, he's hardcore conservative. For I should say MAGA. He's MAGA because
Hmm.
he talks about neocon and rhinos and all that kind of stuff. So he's MAGA for sure. A lot of the reasons why young people voted for Trump was because of him, because he goes on college campuses. I think he's 31 years
Mm,
old. He's 31
okay.
years old. He talks about the whole like woke thing, and he talks about how just you have to be real and have common sense things against the whole men playing in women's sports or transgender athletes, which as people know, yet people might not like when I say this, but I'm not for that either, for a variety of reasons, right? In terms of sports, it has nothing to do though with demeaning people who are transgender. um People are people.
Mhm.
I believe in respecting people. But do I think that somebody who was born a man should play in athletics with women? No, I do not. And I've said that before. So, okay, that being said, they had a podcast and I thought it was really interesting. When you listen to it, I didn't watch it. So I think maybe watching it would be better. But when you listen to it, Charlie Kirk seems to like really be able to handle Governor Newsom. But I think it's because when I was listening to it. If I watch it, they might have been on the same page. Newsom pushed back sometimes on certain things, but he did say too that he thought that the transgender thing was a fairness issue. It's the first time he ever said that.
Oh, I heard about this. Okay.
Yes, so this was I listened to the whole thing. So excuse me. Um, so obviously that is a turn from what people would think that he would believe overall here in California. Now here's my thing with Gavin Newsom. I have a love hate relationship with him. And I say that because I was so pissed the F off during COVID when he was mandating all the masks in California. And
Really, you didn't like that?
listen, mandating all the masks, all of those things. And then his ass went to
Oh, right.
um, French Laundry,
Yep. Yep.
right? So people know where I do reside. And so the idea that he's locking down everything, nobody can do anything, and he and his friends are masked. I don't care. And here's my point. At the time, and even to I don't care that they were tested. I don't care that
Right.
all of that
Right.
they were none of them. That's not
Because
the point. You're the leader of the state.
yeah.
You are the leader of the state during this time where there's a pandemic and everybody's scared and locked down and doing all this stuff and stressing out. And you're going to the one of arguably one of the most expensive restaurants in the fucking world, and you're sitting there and eating as if nothing. So I had
Yep.
a big problem with
So
him with regard
for our
to that.
listeners, while he had this lockdown, Gavin
Yes,
Newsom
this
had a secret party at a really fancy restaurant in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, and it was a secret, but it was found out, and it was a big scandal because here he is having this massive, really tight lockdown, and then he's going and partying. The optics of it are horrible, but also, like you said, it doesn't matter if they were tested or not, right? It's the optics and the leadership. It's the leadership of it.
yes, yes. And I
Um,
think most people know this story because a lot of people have talked about, I mean, this went went countrywide, like nationwide in terms of when this all happened. So, I kind of feel like if you don't know about this, you maybe were under a rock. Okay, so
but here's the other
that's
thing.
my other part. So I want to give you the other side.
Oh,
I want to
sure.
give you the other side. So that I really,
My
that's
apologies.
always that still stands to me. However, what I do like about him is that he's not afraid to have a conversation with the other side as somebody who says they're a Democrat
Mhm.
and also too is known as quote unquote liberal minded for the most part. He will go on Fox News. He will go. He's having this. Charlie Kirk is some of the things that Charlie Kirk says. I get. There's some things I think he's just plain hardcore mean, to be quite honest. And we can talk about that too. And but I appreciate the fact that Gavin Newsom is doing that. I also appreciate the fact that he's no punk when it comes to Trump. And when I say that, I
Yeah.
mean that I mean people who support Trump. There are people who like work with Trump who I feel like are punks. There are people who are Republicans who I feel like are punks. And we always know most of the Democrats are like, unfortunately, you just got to like say they are, many of them. But he is not. And I will give him that. There's another woman, Jasmine Crockett. She's not either. She doesn't care. But my point is that I think that so I have there's a respect there that I have for him with that. Even
Mhm.
when Trump came and visited California for the fires, he forced him to shake his hand. He didn't want to, and he went up to him. And I said, you
Mhm.
have to do that sometimes with people who are going to. I people might know this, but I don't like bullies. But when people are
Yeah.
going to be like super strong and try to bully you,
Yeah.
I think that you do need to stand up for him. So I like that, and I like the fact that he has this podcast. I need to maybe watch it. When I listened to it, like I said, I just felt like I will say Charlie Kirk he's really good on the fly. He's good at like putting out those sniper type of comments that
Mhm.
are really quick, have easy impact, and you get the meeting really quickly. And that's how like people's minds work now with Instagram and everything. So he's
Hmm.
good at that. But I felt like Gavin pushed him, and I did feel like they had a conversation. The fact that he had him on there was good. So it's this is Gavin Newsom. And I said I was going to try to listen to top podcasts. Last week or so, it was ranked number 9
Oh
and
wow.
in the debut. So yes, so that's what I listened to. All
You
right.
know, I actually was not a fan of Gavin Newsom because I was in the back of my head. I was like, at first I thought he was useless. Then he started doing some good things, but in the back of my head, I always thought he's not really qualified for the job that he's got. He's just there because of his daddy's connections. But then it hit me one day, which one of these politicians are actually qualified for their jobs? None of them. None of them. Because the people
That's
that
an
are
interesting
truly
point, Stephen.
qualified, the people that are truly qualified know that's a shitty, shitty job and they don't want the job. So
Hmm.
who takes these jobs? The people that aren't qualified but want it.
That's an
That being
interesting point,
said,
Stephen. Yeah,
yeah,
I hear what you're saying on that. That being said, what did you listen to? What did you listen to any
I
podcasts
did.
or
I listened to an interesting podcast called The Economics, the Econo.
the economics? Ladies and
I,
gentlemen, a new word for the week: the
I was,
economics.
I was, anyways, the economics of everyday things, and
Hmm.
it's hosted by a gentleman named Zachary Crockett, and I thought it's a really good podcast, and they're bite-sized episodes, and he covers all sorts of things about just basically how little parts of the economy function, things that you really are not going to capture in your day-to-day living, and this gives you insight how like different types of businesses work, right? So I mean, for example, one episode I listened to was about prison labor, and it talks about how um, people that are in prison do farm work, and they make pennies, really they make nothing, it's but at the same time what they do get, keep in mind they're in prison, they get
Hey
experience
guys,
in.
it's Livy, and I'm wearing viewers new
Oh,
fashion.
Sorry.
gosh, Robbie. I know you want to move ahead. Are you getting bored of my conversation?
No, I
We
was
can move
trying
along.
to.
It's okay. We can move along if you're not interested.
We're totally keeping this in too. So I was trying to queue up something for when we talk later, and then
So,
it
so
just
what you're
started
saying is you're
playing.
not paying attention to what I'm saying.
No,
Is
I
that what you're
was
saying?
paying attention to what you were saying. You were talking about the prison laborers.
This kind of hurts my feelings because I feel like I'm very attentive when you're speaking and you're off like queuing, listening to all sorts of other things, queuing things up. You're like,
Oh
uh-huh.
my God.
Phoning it
Okay.
in.
You got me. You got me. You got me.
Okay.
You got me. You got me. Okay, go on. Go on.
Okay.
Go on.
Are,
Go.
are, are you
Go.
with me?
Go.
Are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you.
All right. What I was saying before I lost my train of thought because Robbie was listening to J Lo over there or something. I don't know. I was talking about this one episode I listened to about
Hmm.
prison labor, how they don't make money at all, and on the face of it, maybe a human rights activist would say, "Well, that's not fair. They're making 40 cents an hour. That's ridiculous. You can't do this." But guess what? They are prisoners, and they're getting this great experience, which they can take to the real world once they get out of jail. They can use that experience and get jobs that they would have not otherwise gotten. Right.
Hmm.
So it's it kind of explains that setup, and there are many other interesting episodes. Another one I listened to was about retail, about the use of mannequins, and how that helps sales. Another one I listened to was about how restaurants uh, create their recipes, and how the whole process of creating a new food product begins. It all starts with marketing research, and from marketing research, they decide what's going to be created and how they're able to maintain low costs and production, and ultimately the end consumer by not having the the full expensive product, but making kind of a semi high quality product that tastes like the high quality product. For example, they talked about using it at what's that retail burger place called? I forget the name of it. Um, but they have a truffle burger, and obviously they can't use $3,000 per pound truffle burgers, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they blend up mushrooms that are regular mushrooms, and then they mix in truffle oil in order to get that same texture, but the
You know
taste
what?
of truffle.
That makes sense because I have been trying to figure out why is it that what- why is it that there's all this people are buying all this stuff around truffles, right? And I was like, are there really this many truffles? Because I thought truffles were something that was so rare, right? And it took take a long time, and it's actually, for lack of a better term, like mold, right? Then it's a weird kind of mushroom, but it's mold and it grows under the ground, and it takes a long time for it to
Mhm.
really be good. And so I thought because of that process,
Yeah.
that it was pretty rare, which is what made it a quote unquote delicacy, because you couldn't easily get them. But
Hmm.
now you go to the store,
Everyone's
there's
done.
truffle mayonnaise and
Yeah.
truffle hot sauce and truffle this sauce and truffle oil and 1,000 types of different truffle oils
Yeah.
and truffle fries so I was like, okay,
Yeah.
how are they doing this? Okay, so keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
Sorry,
And
just
what's the name of
disappointed.
the burger place? Can you name a couple really popular? Oh, Shake Shack. That's the one.
Oh, Shake
So
Shack.
yeah.
Shake Shack has truffle burgers
Yeah,
now.
yeah, and I've seen it on their when I've gone to Shake Shack. I've seen it um, on their menu. Um, but yeah, so they blend all sorts of other regular mushrooms that are cheap. They blend in a little truffle oil, and they've got their truffle burger. Um, so yeah, it's interesting. And then
Interesting.
they're talking about another, if they're looking for another restaurant, if they're looking to add, they based on market research, they found out that some very high quality citrus flavor was what consumers wanted. So
Hmm.
they took a tiny bit of citrus and they blend it with mandarin juice to make that. You get that nice citrusy flavor, but it's not. They're not actually incurring that cost. So that's another.
Hmm.
Yeah. So overall, that's kind of the things. They're random things that we learn about in this podcast, the different episodes, and it's really interesting just because when I was younger, um,
Hmm.
I wanted to. Robbie, are you with me? I feel like
Yes, I'm listening.
I'll cut it short because I feel like
I'm
I was
not.
gonna go into a story about my youth, but I know you don't like those stories. So, um,
I mean, we have a little bit of time. We know what we're talking about. So if you want to
so
go into your
condescending,
youth,
so
I'm
condescending.
not condescending. I just know that it's going to be something crazy.
No,
So
why?
that's what
I
you
was going
hear.
to say something very. Oh wow! Uh,
Hey,
I sometimes I just want to curl up in a ball and cry when you do these things to me, Robbie. I don't know how to handle it. I'm hurt. I'm wounded. I feel wounded, Robbie.
the drama of it all. Okay, tell the story.
So, well, no, I'm not telling a story,
You're
but what
not?
I
Okay.
will say for I think
You,
it's great for
you shouldn't worry
anyone
about me.
that.
You should be thinking about our audience.
Yes, you're
You're
right.
not going to tell them the
I,
story?
well, here's what I'll say. I'll say that it's great for anyone that wants to learn um, how just overall how the dots connect in the economy. It's about in short, what I was going to say. When I was younger, I felt like I had like a high level understanding of how the economy works, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand how everything connects. How do all the cogs in the
Mm-hmm.
economy connect? And this is a great podcast to really understand. You randomly get to hear little bites of information of different aspects of the economy, and then you start to be able to piece together all this information of how everything is connected.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I
Yeah,
would
I
recommend
think
this. I'm
that's
going to be listening
awesome.
to this because there's a lot of things that I uh, was not aware about before, and I'm learning now. It's called the economics of everyday things.
Economics. I love that new word. The economics of everyday things. We
Zachary
will
Copper.
put that in the links for the podcast. Make sure that you remind me so that I
I
make sure I
will.
add that. Because I don't know if I've been putting all the links for the podcast we reference. So I need to go back maybe and do that for a couple others. So the
Oh
economics of everyday things.
yeah, and speaking of that, I also wanted to
Hmm.
say that he's got a lot of good sources
Hmm.
um, that he uses. A lot of really reliable, very good quality sources that he uses for the information that he provides.
Okay. All right. All right. That's great. I'm glad that you listen to that. I think I'm going to put it on mine to listen to next week too. So,
Yeah, sure.
I
Yeah,
don't,
give me
I
your
mean, we
thoughts.
may
Yeah,
not talk
give
about
me
it.
your
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Um, okay. So AI. Oh, before we get into current events, people, before we get into current events. Okay, Stephen, you had something you want to talk about with AI, and I think this is actually a good transition
Oh,
because what we were
yeah,
just talking about.
yeah.
So,
We're just talking about how fast food restaurants are able to provide the flavors that customers want, but are able to maintain lower costs. And transitioning over to AI used in fast food restaurants and the future of AI in fast food restaurants. So they're really fast food restaurants, like the everyday fast food restaurants that you're all familiar with. They are really looking to incorporate AI into the various aspects of their business. We're talking about having a real time view of restaurant operations. So the kitchen equipment, for example, would be feeding data into the computing services to help efficiencies, supply chain automation, understanding really when you're low on ingredients. Right now I always get pissed off because when I go to McDonald's, which I do about every day, when I'm in that line and they tell me that they're out of Coca-Cola, that pisses me off. Or they're, they're out of they're out of hamburgers. Don't I understand that they try to do the whole fresh thing? They do deliveries every day. I guess. Oh, not for the regular hamburger. I think it's just for the quarter pounder. But they run out of hamburgers all the time. That pisses me off. Don't I don't want to be at McDonald's and having them tell me that they're out of hamburgers. That's not that's not right. So they can definitely do a better job, right? Um, but just overall, improving the efficiency, the supply chain, and also another thing they were looking at was when you order something
hmm.
and they in the kitchen they're preparing your meal, they can have a camera that will monitor and confirm that the order is correct before it gets handed to you at the drive-through. Now, how many times have I gone through the drive-through at McDonald's? And I'm sorry for picking on McDonald's, but there are a lot of problems at McDonald's, and I'm very upset. Especially the damn ice cream machine always being broken. But I
What
digress.
McDonald's are you going to where
They're
everything
all
is
like that.
broken, everything is out, and they don't have it? I've never been to a McDonald's
Ever since
where
COVID, everything's
they don't
ruined.
have anything.
And sometimes they close early because they don't have employees. Um,
Where
so
is this in where you are, where you live? Like this is like a
this
real
is
thing?
everywhere. This is literally everywhere.
Okay, it's not everywhere because, as I said, I've been going to McDonald's. I hate to say
Every
this,
day,
but
like me. Do you go?
not
Are
every day.
you a good
No, not
tester?
every. Oh, I
Then
forgot.
you
You did
wouldn't
like to
know.
go to McDonald's all the time.
That's right.
No, I do not go every day, but
That's
I
what I thought.
have fell off the wagon. Not recently, but maybe like what 2 months? No, about a month ago. I was at McDonald's and I got something. And I was maybe going like every I don't know 2 or 3 every 3 weeks or so. Get
God,
because
that's
I'd like the
nothing.
fries and the fillet of fish that I like, which all I know is all this stuff's all fake. And
Every 3 weeks, you're an amateur, Robbie.
well, I want to be. I don't want to be, you know, a professional McDonald's goer. I'm sorry, McDonald's. I buy your stuff, but that's not an aspiration. So, yes, I would say that whenever I go, they always have what I want. So I find this fascinating.
Yeah,
Keep
my order
going.
gets screwed up very often.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also going to incorporate AI into the self-service kiosks. Look, I think in terms of the customer experience, this is a very good thing for the customer experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know the the thing that I'd expect is if they are reducing the number of employees,
Mm-hmm.
then that lower costs for the company, for the food company, would trickle down to the consumer. Now, because as you know, fast food restaurant costs have skyrocketed for consumers. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So I would expect that if they're incorporating all this AI, that also means that they're getting rid of some employees, right? Now, so if I'm going to a drive-thru, if I've got a machine talking to me and taking my order, and which is already happening, they have that at Taco Bell, which I also go
Mm-hmm.
to once a week. Um, and it's pretty good. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. But all these reduction in costs, are they going to trickle down to the consumers? I doubt it, because you've got greedy companies that are looking to increase their revenue, increase their market share, increase their stock price. So we'll see how that goes. But in that same conversation, people are going to get laid off. So there's the good side for the consumer. You've got better quality service,
Mm-hmm.
maybe lower cost, probably not. But on
Mm-hmm.
the other side of it, the flip side of it, people are going to be consistently losing their jobs over the next few years in the fast food industry. So I'd say if you are someone that works in the fast food industry, don't don't continue to work for the fast food industry. Look for another revenue stream. Look for another job, another kind of job, because the jobs are going to become so scarce moving forward that it's not a good avenue for you to go. And if you do get a job at a fast food restaurant, there's a chance you'll get laid off and you will be replaced by AI. So, do we need people? Obviously, there does need to be a human component at fast food restaurants, right? But the number of employees is going to be reduced. But yeah, like I said, I think it's great for the consumer, because we right now we have a bunch of teenagers that don't give a shit about what they're doing back there. So I think it'll be good for the consumer.
Wow. Well, I mean, I see what you're saying, but these restaurants that have all this automated stuff, they still need people to maintain a lot of those things. And they also too need to have some sort of supervisory person to ensure everything's still
Yeah,
moving
there's definitely going to be
properly.
some human component. Yeah,
So there's going to have to be some sort of human component. Now, obviously jobs will be lost because they're not going to need as many of those people,
right.
but there's still going to be a human component. So I would say that I there were a few restaurants that started and tried. There was this one restaurant I remember um across the street when I was still going into work. Um and it was automated. I can't remember the name of it right now because I think they closed down, but everything was quote unquote AI and robots that was doing it from the background. And the food was fine, right? But
Mhm.
again, I'm trying to figure out though why it didn't take off, which is, interesting to this conversation because
Yeah,
it didn't really take off. So, maybe it was too early. Maybe this will happen, but there's also a part of me that kind of feels like, as much as companies want to implement AI for things, which they will do, there's also some sort of pushback of, do we want to do this? Or how do we do this? Because if you have nobody to manage, then you don't have a job. Right? Like a lot of these managers and the people who like manage teams of people, if everything becomes AI, what's your purpose?
right. And their purpose,
Right?
they won't be people managers anymore.
Yes.
They'll be computer man. They'll be tech folks, right? They're not going to be people
And
managers.
those people are not the same people who would be managing the tech, the people who are the current people managers
Yeah,
with
yeah,
like all those different levels. So there's
yeah.
a part of me sometimes, and I've been thinking about this, that wonders, are they going to implement this in a way to where humans are there's always going to be a human factor? Yes, there may be some people that lose their jobs, but not everybody's going to lose their jobs at this huge amount of rate that everybody thinks there is, because if you do that, then the people who are firing, they are going to be let go too, because there's not going to be
Yeah,
enough people
right,
for
right,
them to do their
right.
jobs, right? So how much of this is going to be automated? Like what is it going to look like for sure? And so I wonder that, and I wonder that with this too, because this is like really a base level. Like I feel like the technology is there to to eliminate everything, but are they going to implement it? And I say
Mhm.
this in the same vein as I look at what made me start thinking about this is I started thinking about how the pharmaceutical industry is put together, right? Like
Right, right.
you can get rid of certain diseases, but when they release drugs so that yes, the symptoms can be cured and certain things can be tapered down, but you need to keep taking the drugs in order for that to happen. You don't just take one pill and then you're cured,
Hmm.
even if there is a way to do that, right?
Hmm.
So I wonder if it's going if AI and some of these ways of doing things like what you're talking about is going to be rolled out in the same way.
You know, going back to something you said earlier about that restaurant that was fully automated
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't take off and they closed down. It's interesting because you made an interesting point. Is Are we ready from a customer standpoint? Are we ready to just want to deal with that setup, right? Do do we is it Did they fail because it was lacking that human component? Do we still need that interaction? Does it make us feel better in our purchasing experience at a fast food restaurant or any restaurant to have that human component? Does it make us feel more comfortable about our food that we're about to eat?
Well, I mean, going back to a lot of things that you say about, like humans or animals and all of this stuff, um, because of that, we are social. Like that
Yeah.
is something that has been stated and proven. There's a lot of studies that look at when people get older, one of the main reasons why people die sooner when they're older is because they're alone and they don't have a lot of
Mhm.
human interaction. So that human interaction
Yeah.
breeds a lot of life. So how are we going to in a way even self-correct that in terms of rolling out some of these things? I don't know. Like I said, these are questions that I'm asking. I don't know what is going to be the answer to them, but I do wonder if because innately we do like to be around people, and we talk about how, we've talked before about the whole loneliness epidemic, and how social media is making us more enraged rather than engaged with people, and there's this more of a movement now of like getting out and interacting with people. Like, for example, I was listening to one podcast which I said I love. It's my one of my new favorite. Shout out to Josh Brown and the Compound and Mike Compound and Friends. So they were talking about on their episode, and I'll play some of it later for something else, but about AI. And we talked about AI and dating and how that's like one of the huge uses right now. So not only are people having these quote unquote relationships with these AI bots, but people are utilizing AI to test what a date would be like. Like they're using it
What?
as like practicing,
Oh my
and then
god.
they go out into the real world and have a date. And
Wow.
I thought it was interesting because it's a way for people, I guess, who are shy or, have
Yeah. Okay.
low ways of socially
Low
engaging with people,
self-esteem.
that not necessarily low self-esteem, well, maybe low self-esteem, but just not able to socially engage with
Yeah.
people. Like they've always,
Okay. I
like
get
been in
that
front of a
use. Yeah.
screen, right? Yeah,
Okay.
and you see that more and more with people who are younger. So this is a way for them to test it and then go out in the real world. But my
Okay.
point is, they're still going out in the real world. They still want to have a date with a regular person. So I wonder if we as humans will do some self-correcting on this in terms of the fact that innately we want to be around each other. Like
I think
innately we want to have relationships with each other. I wonder.
I think
I
it's
wonder.
all going to be dictated by revenue, by all these companies that are producing these services and products. And I think what's going to happen, sorry, it's not going to be dictated by them. It's going to be dictated by us, the consumers. But it's going to start with these companies that are producing these service products, and what they're going to do, they're going to overdo it. They're going to go too far, and they're too far into automation, into AI. And what that's going to do, they're going to see their at first they're going to see revenue skyrocket, and when they go too far, they're going to see it dip. And at that point, because I believe that us as consumers will have a breaking point where we don't want to go past a certain point. And like you said, Robbie, like you said, we're all animals, and we need that human
I was
connection
quoting
for
you. We
survival.
are though. Yes,
And I think
technically.
once these companies cross that point where we no longer uh, are accepting full automation, they will see a drop in revenue and then they'll go backwards. They will do a correction, and will we will dictate how that works. So I think you're right that we will have a breaking point, and it'll be a delicate balance.
Yeah, I mean, even so, for example, like when we look at some of these movies, right? Like, obviously there's a lot of stuff that's futuristic. And I would say that some of these things that are futuristic have some reality in them, either in terms of things that are close to being created or ideas that want to be created, or maybe even some of that happen. And if you look at, for example, like a world of Star Trek, right? Where there's all these different robots and automations and everything like that, there's still a huge amount of human connection, right? In
Mhm.
fact, they're exploring to find more life forms,
Yeah, that's
more,
true. That's
more,
true. Yeah,
more human connection. Now, it's a movie, but my point is that I feel like there's a part of us just as human beings. There's certain things that self correct. There are certain things that happen, and obviously, I think that also too has to do with you know s- spirituality and my belief, and you know,
your belief in God.
yeah, yeah, I do believe that 100%. But I think that there are always going to be things that intervene that we don't necessarily see or understand. I'm open to always seeking and having additional understanding. And a lot of the things that again, these are questions. What will happen? How will this look? All of these certain things. So, um, anyway, I feel like this is a good transition point because you said doing too much do too much and they're going to overdo it and then they have to pull back. I feel like this is a good segue for our next conversation.
Which is what?
Current events and what has been going on
Woo!
in the country since
Oh
the new
boy.
presidency. So
Oh boy.
I want to play a clip, and for me, I just there's just a lot going on, right? And here's the thing that I think is interesting about Trump. I think that there's clearly things that I think that it's gone too far. It's just too much. And then there's things that he's doing, like small things, that I agree with. And I'll give you the things I agree with first.
Yeah.
I hate paper straws. I can't stand them. I think they're disgusting. I've always hated them. I whenever I go someplace and they have a paper straw, I'm like, ugh. And I try
You
it, and
don't
then I
like
get
drinking paper
that
with your
paper
drink?
paper state
You don't like
taste. It's
you don't like it when they
so
melt into your drink?
it's
You don't like that?
melted. It's disgusting. Okay, so the places though that have bamboo straws, all down with that. Like that's what I feel
Yeah.
like. I feel like if you can go and start a business on bamboo straws, you
Yes.
are the bomb. Even if like that's where it's at for me. Bamboo straws. And then so plastic straws, yes, plastic is horrible for the environment, but the fact that there's no more paper straws and plastic straws are back, I have to say, I was down with that. Thank you. All right. So, other thing, pennies get on my nerves too, right? So he eliminates pennies, those
Yeah.
things. So there's these things, and then here's the thing that he did promise that it's changed. So evidently at the border in Biden's last term, over there were about 8,000 people coming in a day or more. And since Trump has been in office, there has been only 8,000 people coming in. So that drop of how many
Mhm.
people have come across is happening. And he has maintained that promise. Now, let's talk about the other stuff. And the only way I can really talk about this too is because I really do, as you know this, I get off on understanding business, the economy, and that's one of the things that people voted for. And that's not what's happening right now. And so I'm going to play this clip here that I was trying to queue up.
Okay.
And it's a bit long. It is from the Compound and Friends. And I'll explain it and we can talk about it because we definitely have some time right now. So here we
Okay.
go.
All right.
The net result of this. All right. So that's a put. The White House put, you said, is not really a thing, or at least not yet, but it will be.
Yeah, I think it will, because if the economy slips into recession, you can't have Doge, tariffs, and fiscal austerity.
Okay.
So right now,
So it unwinds literally everything.
we are. This is the sixth day in a row. This is from Dietrich. It's the sixth day in a row on Thursday that the market is going to be up or down 1%. Sixth day in a row. It hasn't happened since November 2020, and you're starting to see some signs of early panic. Chart. Next chart, please, Daniel. This is from J.P. Morgan via Jessica Menton. In the first hour of trading, now this was yesterday. In the first hour of trading, the so-called retail investors yanked $1.2 billion out of the U.S. equity market, the largest pullback during that time period since JP Morgan's data began a decade ago. That's meaningful. So, in other words, yesterday at the open, people said, get me the out. They dumped stocks. Additionally, this is from Ned Davis. Their daily trading sentiment composite is down to 20, which I don't know what's in here exactly, but that's extreme pessimism. So it's this weird sort of dynamic where we're not that off the highs, but the news is so newsy and noisy that people are freaked out.
Can I add one more thing to that? We just hit. I don't know if it's an all-time record, but we just hit a fairly high level of people tapping their 401ks early, and that seems like it's of a piece with people yanking money out of the equity market.
What? Say that one more time.
We hit a level. I think Meb shared this. I'm not sure exactly what the number represents, but it's an extreme in people tapping their 401k.
Well, that's not good.
Either borrowing against it or outright making early withdrawals.
That's not good.
I'll look.
That's
into
more
it,
economic than stock market. But we also had the put call ratio spike yesterday.
Yeah.
So there's fear. I don't know if it's a bottom fear, but trade.
Yeah.
But it's.
And I'm sure the depth of market, like this market is super thin. Now if someone sells, you're going to just see comets falling out of the sky. Like on specific stocks.
But do you think that sentiment shift and the stuff that Michael just showed you with like outflows, do you think that stuff is at all connected with not just tariffs, but like people working for the federal government, people work at companies that are contractors for the federal government? So not just public sector employees, but private sector employees whose companies' fortunes are tied to how much money the federal government spends. Because we talk to people in the DC area, there's like legitimate concern in not just in DC, but like anywhere that people do business with the government, that revenue is not going to show up. So do you think that a component of this is not just about tariffs, but it's about people actually worrying about their survival?
Yeah, like there's a real soft patch coming.
Well, because 70,000 buyouts of federal employees, and talk about laying off. They're going to lay off 7,000 people from the Social Security Administration. They're laying off IRS agents. That's nationwide. That's not just in D.C. So I think there's some component of people pulling money out because literally they don't know if they're going to have to live off of it.
And that's why I like real estate listings where there is a lot of federal employment, whether it's Arizona or Arlington, Virginia.
So that's not tariffs. That's this fiscal austerity.
Well,
that's a whole other thing.
Consumer spending got crushed and savings not skyrocketed, but savings was up big time. So people are bracing for impact.
Yes. Now that's
Okay, so that was a lot, but essentially, they're saying that all of this is too much, and I played that because there's so much there, but it's also too is talking about all of the different ways that this is connected.
Yeah.
It's not just about, tariffs. It's about what happens with the threat of tariffs, the federal government employees being kicked out by somebody who was not voted into office, and then those people pulling money out of their 401ks because they don't know if they're going to be fired because they were told they were going to be fired. If they are fired, then they have to live off this money, and there's huge amounts, $1.2 billion of money pulled out within the last month.
Is that
and people are pulling?
I missed that part.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Of sell-offs of stocks, all these people pulling money out of their 401ks. And then I think Josh brought up a really good point when he said, again, this is totally sober. it's not just about the people that work for the government. It's about the people who also have contracts with the government. So if you
Yeah.
pull down that, then those people in the private sector are also impacted. And so I think it's too far. And
Yeah.
we're seeing some pullback. Like we're seeing some pullback because it has gone too far. And then the tariff piece with Canada, like what, really? Canada? Like how we've been partners with Canada forever. But the
Yeah.
idea that we're going to have tariffs on lumber and people who are having this lumber and with the tariffs, they said that the amount of money to build a new house could go up by $10,000. We knew before, he said he was going to have the tariffs, and then he said a month for the autos,
Yeah.
that SUVs were going to go up over $10,000. People can't afford that. This is not what people voted
Well,
for. Not to mention, and one more thing, I didn't play this clip, but I have had clips of people who voted for him and they've lost their jobs because many of these, and
and
the
they
pullback
deserve
is
it.
coming.
And they
Many of the,
deserve it.
I'm okay, that's you. I don't think anyone deserves to lose their job. But what I will say is this: many of these places in middle America and where people are living, people where some of my relatives are living, in southern states, in the middle of the country, etc., my friends, there's a large part of the industry are government jobs,
Mhm.
are federal jobs, are people who are able to live in a small town with what the values they like, the environment they like,
Mhm.
the size of the town, because there are government places or they're doing contracts with government.
Yeah.
Now that's going away, and some of those people are getting fired, and they said they are shocked. They did not expect this. They wanted the waste, fraud, and abuse to be addressed, but they didn't think it was going to be like this. And it doesn't have to be like this because there was, a period where Bill Clinton did this. People have talked about this multiple times, and they went in and they actually did it very surgically. Now, the Senate congressmen are going back to their districts and they're getting lots of pushback and the Republican senators
Yeah.
and congressmen pushback from their districts because people are losing their jobs, and they're saying they did not vote for Elon Musk. They did not vote for Elon. In Louisiana, where my family's from, in Mardi Gras, they had like I don't know if you saw this, but there was a parade of Cybertrucks, and people were booing. People were booing.
Well, first question:
And
why was there a parade of Cybertrucks?
because they were just like a part of, it's in Mardi Gras when they have the parade. They had people in there. They have people driving down the street, and people were booing. And these were
Okay.
not. And I will say this too, just for the audience, for people who might think, well, these are all woke people. No, and if you looked at who was a part of the parade and who was booing, they weren't who you would think they might be. Is what I'm saying.
Mhm.
So, um, my point is that people are feeling this,
Mhm.
and there needs to be a clapped
Yeah.
back, and there is being a clapback. For example, I mean,
Yeah.
there are things too. Trump has said, Elon, like cabinet department heads, they're responsible for doing
Mhm.
this. You can't do this anymore. Um, and so I think he's feeling it. I think the
And part of
congressman
that is
feeling it.
because of
So yeah, but
rulings
go
that
on.
he's
What were you gonna
forced.
say?
I
Go
was
go
saying,
on. I wasn't finished, but go ahead. What were you
oh
gonna say?
no, go ahead, go ahead. It's all right.
No, I was really just finishing my point is that there is pushback because this is definitely affecting people's day to day. And what that clip said, if you didn't understand everything, was essentially people are scared. They're pulling their money out because they don't know what they're going to do. They're saving more money, they're spending less. And this is all within the last 60 days, right? Of this quote unquote, or close to 60 days. Has it been 60 days? I guess it has been 60 days. Of
Yeah.
not quite, right? Not quite.
No, it hasn't. Wait, let's see.
No, a little bit over, right? January 20th.
Almost there. We're almost at 60 days.
Or almost at 60
Yeah.
days, yes. So people are concerned this quickly. So it's too much too fast.
Yeah.
Overshooting, right? So
Let's
That's all I wanted to say. But I really liked that clip, and I thought it was
yeah, it's very insightful.
insightful. Go on.
And so going back to let's talk about the whole domino effect that you were talking about earlier that a lot of people don't really realize. It's not a flat scenario where you're cutting off 70,000 or hundreds of thousands of government jobs, and that's where it ends. There's a domino effect. So, for example, for our audience, so I can give you an idea of how this works. So you've got Department A in the government. Department A gets the entire, say, 15,000 people get laid off from Department A, or the entire department gets cut. Now, suppose you have 10 different contractors servicing Department A. So these are non government entities. These are businesses that are providing consulting services, for example, or software services to Department A. So if you cut off Department A, what happens to all of the consulting services, all of the all these other services that are providing to Department A? They get damaged too. Their income, their revenue gets cut off too. Now, they have to do layoffs as well. Now, because these service providers are now doing layoffs and they're losing revenue, what happens to the and product providers to those companies that were providing services to Department A? So you've got consulting services that are now cutting off the services that they were receiving. And so down the line, there are more layoffs, more loss of revenue. So it keeps on happening down the line. Eventually, it hits the whole economy. You're not just talking about, eventually, it hits the whole economy. You're not just talking about the government department that's getting hit, it's a cascading effect on the entire economy.
Exactly. You're 100%. And that's what Tom Lee was saying. So, Tom Lee was talking to Josh and Mike on Compound and Friends. And he said, you can't have, he said this, you can't have austerity, Doge cuts, and tariffs and not go into a recession.
Yeah.
Literally. That was the first sentence. And that's what stood out at me. It's because you can't do all this all at one time and then think that everybody's going to be okay. And this is not the pain. It's one thing to say people have to deal with pain, it's another thing to say people have to deal with devastation. And we're literally sending a bomb into like our economic
Yeah.
engine with regard to this in one area. And I will say this, I'm not saying there's not waste, fraud, and abuse in the government.
Right, right,
There
right. There
is
is, there
waste,
is.
fraud, and abuse in
Yeah.
the government, 150%. But if you're going to attack waste, fraud, and abuse in an area of industry that has been stable and that is creating money and jobs and basically an environment, because we're all based on a consumer, we are a consumer economy, consumers that can spend and buy these things, and you put a bomb on that, and then all of the things that you were talking about that are part of that ecosystem, it's all going to filter out. And as that's filtering out, it's going to create a recession, and it's going to create a recession in a piece that's not hit. And then when you have in the private sector, now with the tariff piece,
Yeah, from the
those
other side
people
of it,
can't even, those
you've got
people,
the
that's
tariffs
going to
coming
hit
in from
them
the other side.
too, right? Because they're
Yeah,
like,
it's
well,
absurd.
we can't plan because we don't know what's going to happen. Like the back and forth with this tariffs, they can't plan.
Yeah,
Is it going to go on? Is it not? Is it going to happen? Is it not? Is it going? You can't plan. You can't make
dude.
financial plans. You can't make forecasts. And then when you can't do that too, you don't know. Are you still going to have the same amount of revenues? Are the people still going to be buying certain things? If there's this bomb off in the other part, how is that going to affect your business? What are going to be those challenges? Did you make the forecasts that you made last year? They're not really good anymore. Can you adjust your forecast? Are you an ability to do that? If you're a public company, you're going to take a hit because you're not going to make the forecast that you put out from an earnings perspective. So there's all these different things that are happening, and I want to say this is not political. This is economics. This is like money. This is about like what affects people on a day-to-day basis, what people say they want. And by the way, eggs are still high.
Yeah, it's actually it's shocking and it's also embarrassing for our country, right? To you think about how could anyone, you've got all these leadership, these people in leadership positions in the government thinking that this actually makes sense economically. First of all, you're throwing a bomb with Doge, and on the other end, you're throwing a bomb with tariffs. How could this be? And you still got politicians going on air and saying this is all part of a plan. It's all for the good. It's giving me a little, a little pain, but there's a big plan that's going to work out really well. I mean, are they just sycophants or are they just stupid? I don't know. But it's either one of the two. Either way, it's disqualifying. You should not be in politics. Either if you're too dumb to understand how this whole thing works economically, or if you're a Trump sycophant, you are disqualifying yourself from being in this position, rightfully.
Okay, so I don't like calling people dumb. And
Come on,
I will
Robbie.
say this.
We're
No, I
animals.
don't.
Many of us are dumb.
No,
Come
no,
on.
no, 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 no. I don't like people calling people dumb like this. I don't, because I do think that there are certain people that voted for him thinking that this was not going to happen, and now they see that
I'm not saying the
this is what
voters are
it
dumb.
is.
I'm saying the politicians
They're
that are
just
allowing
they're
this to
saying
happen are
this.
dumb.
So I don't think they are. I think that they want the power. And so here's the thing. And I was listening to my boy Scaramucci. I know Anthony Scaramucci. And so on his podcast, he was saying this, which I thought was interesting because he knows so much about history. It's kind of freaking
Gamooch.
scary how much he knows about history. So he was talking about McKinley, and evidently Trump is obsessed with McKinley. He loves McKinley. We renamed the other mountain back to McKinley. So McKinley um, was tariffs. During that period of time, they put tariffs and there was hardship, but then everything came back and people started like making all these things in America, and America did
Mm,
experience a boom. But what Scaramucci says, which I think is pretty interesting, and I didn't think about it, he was like, that was a different period of time in terms of just, in I guess it was in the 30s, or I don't know if it was the late
absolutely.
1800s, 30s, 1930s, something like that. But we weren't depending on the world.
Yes.
Like, we didn't have a company like Google that's a global company, right?
Everything's changing.
Everything is global now. All these businesses are tied. So you put tariffs on one thing, it's going to impact us. It's going to we're all it as much as people don't like it, we are all interconnected.
Yes. Yes.
So the whole America First idea, it's one thing to say America first, it's another thing to say America only. We
Right.
can't
Right.
be America only anymore. It's not the reality on the ground. It's just not. There's too many things that are globally connected. The reason why Facebook has so many, can say that they have quote unquote 3, 4 billion followers, is because it's worldwide. It's
Yes.
not just here in America. It's only 333 million Americans. So clearly it's not just here. So my point is that this is not going to work the same way because we're way too
Oh yeah.
inextricably linked with
Yeah.
too many other companies, from small businesses to big businesses. Anybody who has a drop shipping business and it's doing it with things that are coming from China is going to be more money, or across the seas. Now I understand what China was doing was they were going and they were setting up shops in Vietnam to bypass the tariffs. So they might do that again,
Hmm.
right? But even still, that piece, there's still going to be some sort of friction that has to be taking place, right? Like because there's the cost of setting up those places
Hmm.
that have to be accounted for in the goods and services. So again, talking about how all of these things are inextricably linked. And then he was talking about putting tariffs on other areas. So the more tariffs
Yeah.
around the world, the more impact it's going to have to us. So that's like, we got to, yeah.
To your point about Scaramucci, um, I've been having I've been going back and forth with a buddy of mine for the last week on the same topic. He's just so he's saying telling me, listen, it worked last time. It's worked before. It'll the same thing. It'll work the same way again. It'll work. It'll work out. We'll benefit. I said, listen, that was a different time. We have so many different factors, and we're in a global economy now, which did not exist back then. was a completely different world. We're dealing with so many new factors. We're all interconnected. This tariff thing will not work the same. And I feel like I've gotten a little into him. I've kind of educated him, but I still feel like he's not understanding how, you know, it's not the same. You can't operate under the same assumptions, and you can't do the same things and expect the same outcome, right? As the past with these tariffs. It just doesn't work
No,
that anymore.
no, because the majority of these companies, even small businesses, for anybody out there who's working for a small business or who's working for a company that just does not have employees, most people don't just have employees in America anymore.
Yep.
Think about it. Think about if you work at a company and you have like, oh, our EMEA team or our Asia APAC team. APAC, China. I mean, it's not necessarily, it's usually Japan, Singapore, but it's overseas. EMEA,
Yep.
Europe. You're selling things in Canada. You have a Canada team. Like these are all because in order to grow, in order to make money, these companies have to go global. And many times keeping your cost down means that you're importing those goods from other places.
For
So
our listeners, EMEA stands for Europe, Middle East, and Africa.
yes, I know. Yes, thank you for doing the entire acronym for me. Correct. It does. Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Correct. And from that perspective too, let's remember that everything is being affected. And so if we are working at these companies where we have these organizations, which I know we do, I know there's somebody, or let's say you have a call center in another place, or even if it's smaller, there are very few places that just only source and have everything
It's
here.
it's almost
It's
impossible these
almost
days.
impossible. Even your computer equipment that you use to
Yeah.
set up your business, the stuff in them is not made here.
Yeah.
Now they're building those factories. Those things take time to do. So
It
the
can't be done in 1 month.
idea that there's going to be a little disturbance or we're going to have a little pain for a
Uh,
little while. Do people really want to have pain for 10,
yeah.
15 years? Because that's what we're talking about. We're not talking
Don't
about
listen
a
to the
year.
people. Don't listen to the politicians that tell you otherwise. It's gonna be a big mess.
So this is things that are affecting everyone's day to day. I don't think this is what people voted for. I don't think that. I think it's too much, and that's my perspective on it, at least from the tariffs perspective. Now, I will say there's other things, like I told you, that I do like, that,
Yeah.
and then there's other things I don't. That I'm not going to have conversations about some
Speaking
of the
of,
other stuff.
you should
And we
try.
are at 1 hour, so it's probably time for us to go.
That isn't just to close. Speaking of the things that you do like about Trump, you're talking about the straws. Try Fade straws. They're made from canola oil. My buddy's private equity firm owns that company, and they are biodegradable. They're not paper.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
maybe I'll order some. But
Fade,
see,
P H
look,
A D E.
PHAD, fade straws.
No, PHADE.
ADE.
Fade.
Does he know that you just gave him a commercial on the podcast?
No, I do. I know.
You need to
Yeah,
get some money from him.
that's right.
And share the wealth with the podcast.
Exactly.
So, anyway, everyone, thank you so much for listening to us today. We went quite a long time today just because we wanted to jump into like what's going on and just talk about some things we have not been talking about. This has been, I think, a great conversation. Definitely tune in. Please follow. Please subscribe wherever you're listening. And Steven, any parting words for the audience?
My friends, stay. Ugh, I can't even speak. Stay safe, stay wise, keep your money. Don't risk the pounds in the government.
Okay, so
Use
what was the word you made up today?
the word I made up.
For
Oh, I,
economics? I can't even say it. Okay, anyway, I'm sorry.
I can't even say it now.
I have to.
What did I say? I cannot.
Econ.
I don't know what I said.
I
Anyway,
know it's back in the podcast. I'll have to go back and listen to it. Okay, go on. Sorry.
well, my friends, It is I, Stephen Kennedy, board certified atheist, at your service. Let's talk about it whenever you guys are ready. You too, Robbie.
All right, Steven. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful week, and see you next time. Or listen to us next time, because we're not on video yet. Okay. Bye!